This whole show is about what happens when you're driving down the interstate and you look way off to your left and you see that tiny little dusty community.
Picture Luke Skywalker and Han Solo in a 70s muscle car with chainsaws in the trunk, cruising across this American landscape.
And our show turns left and drives out there, kicks up the dust, and explores it.
We show you the demons, we show you the spirits, the ghosts, the, whatever it may be, and we attack them head on.
These are just two American guys that are running around trying to, help out their fellow countrymen and, do whatever they can do.
I've always been obsessed with urban legend and American folklore, ever since I was a kid. There was a book, I think I even remember reading in 4th grade, which was just urban legends for kids, just these gross little stories. And I mean, I can trace it back from that time on. Horror movies I've just always been into. And I've just always sort of loved the genre. It's fun and it's scary and it's getting a visceral reaction out of people is, really enjoyable. And it's just something I've always gravitated towards. When it came time for that development season, and I sat down with the executives at Warner Brothers, and they said, what's the show that you've always wanted to do? And I said, I have this great idea. I said, I have it all worked out. It's a show about a reporter, and he travels from town to town, and he investigates the supernatural, and he writes them in these columns, and nobody believes him. Like, that's what I want to do. And they looked at me, and they kind of paused, and they said, yeah, no, nah. Like, we really like the idea of doing urban legends and American folklore, but nah, not into the reporter. What else you got? So I said, well, I did think that, one way to do this show would be to do it as Route 66 and put two guys in a classic car and cruise them from town to town, and just they get involved in these supernatural mysteries, and then they basically just drive in and out of a different horror movie every week. And the studios, we love that, do that.
We seemed to hit it off on the core idea of doing something supernatural that echoed the true scariness of the X-Files back in its day, and then got working on the idea itself, which really morphed from this kind of investigative reporter, and it became about two boys on the road and reconnecting their family together, and the kind of quintessential tour of faded Americana.
I wanted McGee and Peter Johnson involved from the beginning because I wanted people that I could bounce ideas off of, people with great instincts, and McGee with just his attitude of making sure that it's fun and making sure like we're really hitting the emotional beats of that hero's journey.
I was originally attracted to the project for 2 reasons. One, we'd been chasing around Eric Kripke for a long time, and I really responded to his voice. 2, I'm very inspired by what's happening at the movie theaters week in, week out, with scary films really having a lot of resonance with today's audiences. So we started talking about a few ideas, and Eric became very passionate about supernatural, and just the notion of everything he'd done in his career was leading him to this very point, to tell these stories, these American road stories, this Star Wars and Truck Stop America, he likes to say. I'm a fan of this genre because I'm the guy at the movie theater every week, and Eric really understands the genre. He intimately understands what scary is and what compelling storytelling is, and he also understands character. So that, with his passion for the project, just got me excited.
One thing I learned from Dad, so no matter what kind of shapeshifter it is, there's one sure way to kill it. Silver bullet to the heart.
I think our biggest challenge is to make these stories relatable to the people, that the characters are grounded in a reality, that you believe as an audience what you're seeing, that this could happen. So we kind of try to subtly create an atmosphere that we don't think you've seen on television before.
What Eric had in the core idea that was really truly special and different, a couple things. One, he has this fascination with the real-life American folklore and mythology that's specific to, to this country, and that isn't into the kind of science fiction zone of, aliens, and that's very like real and grounded and based on, urban legends and myths and ghost stories that are passed around campfires. The second thing was telling these kinds of stories through the lens of two brothers on the road taking the quintessential American road trip, trying to reconnect and put their family back together.
The first thing we set out to really make this feel like a horror movie. People ask me all the time, well, were you inspired by X-Files, or were you inspired by Buffy, or what TV show, inspired you? And I said, I gotta tell you, we were inspired by features. We weren't inspired by other television shows. Movies like Poltergeist and American Werewolf in London and Evil Dead, those were the kind of movies that I really gravitated towards. And those are movies that are scary as hell, but they're funny too, and they have sort of like a sense of playfulness to them. And that's what always sort of attracted me, and that's what we strove hard to bring to the series of Supernatural.
You did.
Oh, I did.
We took our scares seriously, but we didn't take ourselves seriously.
So, fake U.S. Marshal, fake credit cards. You got anything that's real?
My boobs.
Creating Supernatural, the pilot, was a very difficult birthing process. There was a whole other version of the Supernatural script. The woman in white was not in it. Dad died in the teaser. I mean, I worked so hard on that script, and it was just a mess. And so it didn't work. And once you sort of said, well, actually, what if Dad's still alive? And what if the boys grew up with Dad as demon hunters? What if they grew up in this sort of fractured family? And to me, that's what made the show work. And it made it sort of, it gave me the ability to like have fun with it and have funny lines and have kind of a breezier tone. And so no, that first script was useless. And the thing that really pushed us over the top was when David Nutter read it and said, I liked it.
It was a breakfast that Eric and I had with David Nutter, and there was this moment where he kind of winked at us and said, I'm in, let's do this.
And that was 11 a.m., and we were greenlit to pilot by, I think, 3 p.m. that day. So I'd like to take credit, but let's be real. It was David Nutter saying, I'm going to direct this pilot, the winningest pilot director in television history, that pushed us over the top.
Oh, easy, Tiger.
Dean?
Well, the idea is to make the show feel like a movie every single week. And we wanted to put that in motion immediately with David Nutter doing the pilot because he makes movies. I don't care if it's ultimately being seen on a television screen. You're watching a fundamentally cinematic experience, a fundamentally filmic experience. And Nutter established that tone right out of the gate, and we do everything we can to get that done on a week-in, week-out basis.
Well, I think the heightened drama between the characters as well as the accentuated atmospheres that we are able to create and the moods and tones we're able to kind of create in a show like this, and I think they can really provide wonderful scares as well as attitudes and tones that I think can be very exciting.
Once David came on, he approached it and really wanted to do this project because it was grounded in the relationship between the brothers.
To me, the core of the show has always been family. And when you ground it and you believe it as those two guys, that's what makes everything work. And their chemistry is the reason we're on the air.
And action!
Easy, Tiger.
Dean? You scared the crap out of me.
It's because you're out of practice.
When there's only two leads in the show, both of those guys have to be home runs or else you're dead. So the pressure was really on to cast those two guys. And we saw everybody, and we had weeks and weeks of casting, and we weren't, finding who we were looking for.
I remember when I first read the project and got involved in it, I was actually going to go out for Sam, the younger brother, not knowing. I don't think they had the older brother or anybody in mind for that. I know that they were thinking about Jared, and they wanted to bring me in and read kind of against Jared as opposed to with Jared.
But Jared came in, and he was just so likable and soulful, and immediately you just saw things from his eyes and his point of view.
When I read the script, I was really into the mythology of it, and I was really into the two characters, Sam especially, and I basically said, I'd love to be a part of this. If y'all will have me, I'd love to work my butt off for y'all guys and help tell the story of this character.
After Jared walked out of the room, we talked about it, and we said, geez, it's like Jared, if Jared was Sam, who, and Sam is supposed to be Luke Skywalker, so you sort of need an innocence, we're going to tap all of Jensen's charisma and put it into Dean. And we called Jensen and his representatives, and we said, there's Luke Skywalker, but you could also be Han Solo. And who as a kid, didn't want to be Han Solo. And he was cool and immediately saw the opportunity there. And so then we sort of lucked into having the both of them. And David, I remember I was with David Nutter, Peter Johnson, and we all turned to each other and we said, we have a series. We're going to get picked up.
People either have chemistry together or they don't. You can't fabricate it. You can't cheat that. And these two guys together just have it, and it's a delight when you see it sort of explode in front of you, and you'd be a fool not to take advantage of that.
What were you thinking, shooting Casper in the face, you freak?
Hey, saved your ass.
To me, I learned very quickly that Jensen and Jared, first of all, they're very good friends. And that's where the chemistry comes from. But they're also kind of unique. If they were dogs, Jensen would be Rin Tin Tin, and Jared would be Pluto. And they just genuinely like each other. Well, that comes off on the screen.
Oh, I take everything back I said. I'm so happy to see you.
I love the emotional drama between these brothers. That's what I find interesting. It's not the fact that they're hunting down demons. I mean, that's fun.
Even if we do find the thing that killed her, Mom's gone, and she isn't coming back.
Don't talk about her like that.
I think the show is going into a very real emotional world where we're really getting to see the dynamics of two brothers.
Sam wants to be in school. Dean wants to be out on the road, and that's just the surface of it. And then you begin to develop and understand all the underlying subtext as the series evolves.
All right, look, I know how you feel.
Do you? How old were you when Mom died? 4? Jess died 6 months ago. How the hell would you know how I feel?
The show is very, very difficult to produce. It's difficult to produce because you're moving so fast and you want it to be feature film quality and you need it to have action.
It's probably, production-wise, the hardest thing I've ever been involved with. And every week is a different horror movie, so you're faced with a different set of challenges every week.
Not only, does the look have to be carefully determined, but there has to be stunts, and there has to be CG, and there has to be prosthetic effects.
The producers and writers and directors on this show really want to use visual effects as a means to further the story. And this sort of series for a visual effects person, it's like a piece of candy. You want to be part of it. Every episode, you're going to have to come up with a new way of, killing the monster or having it escape or creating its powers or whatever. And it's always a challenge to show just enough effect to keep the story going and keep it scary.
The overall look is just kind of creepy, I mean, it's noirish. It's like, there's a lot of very sourcey things. It's shadowy, It always has to have an element of surprise. But, with that, it's very moody. I think, dramatic and moody is like what we are from the first frame to the last frame. It's been the most collaborative show I've ever been on as far as just positive reinforcement, especially coming from Eric. I mean, we email all the time, and Eric, what about this? And if he doesn't like it, it's not going to happen, and that's cool. But there's so many of the times that he says, that's great, man, just go for it.
Very early on, it was a lot of meetings between Eric and myself and Bob and the creative people, and where do you go? Because the show could go in a number of different directions.
It's hard to write a 1-hour movie every week.
Really, you start with, why is that scary? Who are we scaring? Who are we saving? And then just go from there.
We're always saying in the room when we're breaking stories, okay, we're going to do vampires, for example. How is the supernatural version of vampires? So not only does it motivate me, not only does it make it more exciting as a writer or a filmmaker to come into it and say, okay, yes, I've done this kind of monster, how can I do it in a new way? But it also makes our show special.
We also spend a tremendous amount of time on Amazon.com ordering every book ever written about urban legends, and we're on Google 2 or 3 hours a day, right. a lot of the time, looking for good urban legends and good horror stories.
The urban legend about, the hanging boyfriend, which opens Hookman, seeing Bloody Mary, come to life. All of these, gory little stories that I always loved, and being able to tell them, and as we bring all of these sort of brilliant, passionate minds to the table, and it becomes not just my vision, but their vision too.
That yours?
Yeah.
Nice car.
In terms of the muscle car, in terms of the 67 Impala, it was funny, the first draft of the script, it was a 65 Mustang. My next door neighbor pimps out rides for a living, like that's what the guy does. And he tricks out classic automobiles. And he happened to be outside, and I was outside, and I said, hey man, let me ask you a question. I'm writing this script, and the guys are, supposed to be in this muscle car cruising around the country, and I'm thinking like a 65 Mustang. And I was like, what do you think? He said, oh yeah, 65 Mustang's perfect if you're a And I said, oh, well, I can't use that. Then, what car should I use? And without hesitation, he said, 67 Chevy Impala, because you can fit a body in that trunk. And I went immediately online and I saw a photo of it. I said, oh yeah, that's the car. We kept saying, like, what we want is a car that when it pulls up next to you at a stoplight, you lock the door. Like, we wanted like a scary looking, car. And the Impala has really become, it's the third character to the show.
I swear, man, you gotta update your cassette tape collection.
Why?
Well, for one, they're cassette tapes. And two, Black Sabbath, Motorhead, Metallica, it's the greatest hits of mullet rock.
The voice of the show is classic rock and just sort of, dirty, dusty rock and roll that you put on in a cassette.
I really wanted this vibe of classic Americana, and classic rock is a huge factor of that.
This is a very important phrase, so I want you to repeat it back to me one more time.
Zeppelin rules.
That's right, up-high.
And to me, it was such an important part of the show that they listened to that music.
It was very clear from the get-go that we were going to have like Zeppelin and AC/DC and Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath and Metallica, all bands that I really love.
Sam is pointing through Dean's tapes, like saying, like, hey, look, here's the soundtrack of the show on camera, so you can't use anything else.
It fell right in with, driving the 67 Chevy and these blue-collar guys listening to AC/DC and stuff. It fit, and I was excited about it.
It just seems to work for the show, and it feels kind of tough, and it feels kind of cool, and it's not disposable, and it stood the test of time. And these are stories that have stood the test of time. So between that and, Eric's love for it and my love for headbanging, we decided this was the way to go.
Hi, my name's John Bonham.
Isn't that the drummer for Led Zeppelin?
Wow, good. Classic rock fan.
We think it has something for everybody. We put a lot of humor into the shows. We have mini love stories. If people will sample it, they see that it's not just kind of it's certainly not a slasher movie every week.
It really is rooted also in some real superstitions, and also it's very spiritual in a way.
What'd you find out?
Everyone Roy's healed 6 people over the past year, and I cross-checked them with the local obits. Every time someone was healed, someone else died. And each time the victim died of the same symptom LaGrange was healing at the time.
You take what Sarah and Rael did with the episode Faith, and like a level of exploration into ethical issues and sort of a moral investigation. And they're, trying to have deep, thoughtful, commentary. And I never would have thought that I would be involved with such a classy episode of TV.
Faith, I think, was probably the least horror movie that we did. I thought it was about something. I thought there were real issues in that show that we explored within the context of our show, and it didn't feel preachy in any way.
Why do you deserve to live more than my daughter?
This was an episode that we conceived and we were really excited about. And also, as we were sort of breaking the story, we became deeply concerned. Like, they're never going to let us, tell this story about a preacher's wife who's, evil and killing people that are, homosexual and, abortion rights activists. And we thought, oh God, they're gonna throw the book at us with this one. And nobody questioned it. I mean, they really gave us so much creative space.
I don't think we want to experiment too much and go too far afield from what the show is, which is a good little horror movie every week, that has an ongoing story with the brothers and brings a certain amount of, emotion and relatable heart to it.
You have to base your episode in real human emotion. We're finding our feet in that direction. I did an episode called Shadow where they see their father for the first time, and we really ground that in emotion. Then it's real, and you can make this real for an audience.
I got to be a part of this fight. I mean, this fight is just starting, and we are all going to have a part to play. For now, you got to trust me, son.
The whole genre, not only horror, but there's such interest in psychological phenomena. So I think it touches on a lot of areas that people will find stimulating.
We have not run out of urban legends yet, and we have not run out of scary creatures, and we have a long list of demons to go through, so.
And there's also, you know, Sam and Dean also have a really colorful past. I mean, I think there's stuff to be taken from their friends, from their father's friends. I mean, there's a whole network of people that they're connected to that we haven't even begun to look at yet.
Every person they mention, we intend to bring them to life and probably murder them.
Just like Star Wars, I can't wait to see, you know, what other characters and what other things and areas of their world kind of start to color the series.
We explore the father and the mother and going back home to Kansas, and then the girlfriend coming back and new relationships with new girls.
Along the way, Sam and Dean have encountered a lot of surprises, like the fact that Sam has developed these strange abilities and they don't really understand what that means yet. And they're also encountering other people who seem to be connected to this demon that they're looking for. So what we're hoping is that we get a little deeper into the mystery.
But, you know, we can't really give away the information because, like, Eric will torture us.
Keep people guessing. We have twists and turns. You know, our game plan has always been we have the mythology for season 1 mapped out. We have actually the mythology right now we've kind of mapped out all the way through the end of season 3, where we know the big story points that we want to hit.
We establish the architecture of the seasons, then we get in and we talk about episode to episode and the storylines that we want to explore.
Season 1 exceeded my expectations. I think the show has grown and evolved in ways that I didn't count on. I wanted to come into this just to scare the hell out of people, but I kind of came out the other side having these two characters who I'm as proud of as anything I've created, and sort of, along with everybody else, kind of can't wait to see what happens next.
You wake me up when it's my turn to drive.